Hi! In this video, we'll take a look at the transaction screen in the Configure Store wizard. I've finished downloading all of my settings from QuickBooks and the online store, and now I'm on the Transactions tab. Here, I'll specify how to record my orders into QuickBooks, whether to enable purchase orders or not, and to specify additional options related to my transactions. The first question is in regards to the type of transaction I'd like to create in QuickBooks for all of my online orders. I can choose to create the same transaction type for all orders, or if I have different payment methods and I'd like to create different transaction settings for each type of payment method, I can also use that option. For the purposes of this demo, let's assume that we're using the same type of transaction for all orders. In the drop-down, I can select whether I'd like to record all of my online orders as invoices, sales receipts, sales orders, or estimates. For more details on what's the difference between each of these, please refer to the QuickBooks Help Guide or consult with your CPA. I'm going to go ahead and select Sales Receipt. I click on Setup. Now, ECC opens up a transaction settings screen. These screens will vary depending on the type of transaction you've selected. For sales receipt, I can specify the template, the transaction class, the sales rep, the deposit to account. I can also mark the sales receipt as pending, to be printed, or to be emailed. And these drop-downs are populated based on the data that I already have in QuickBooks. If you don't see the data you're looking for, you'll have to go back into QuickBooks, create the corresponding template or transaction class, and then re-download those settings into ECC, as we discussed in the previous video. Once you've downloaded the settings, come back to the screen and you can select the right options. Let's assume that I'm going to use the custom sales receipt. My transaction class I'll specify as none. I don't really need sales rep for my transaction, so I'll leave that as none. And I'll go ahead and select the deposit to account. Let's say that all of the funds that I receive from my online store, I want to deposit them into checking. And I'm going to leave these checkboxes unchecked. I hit Save. Next, I can specify the options for my transactions, such as the number of the transaction date, the description, the memo settings, the shipping dates, and various display details of how I'd like information to appear on the transactions. By default, the most commonly used settings are already configured. However, let's say that in my QuickBooks memo, I don't want to record the order number, but instead, I'd like to put the order notes. You can always modify these details once you've had a chance to test with a few order postings. Going back to the settings screen, I also have the option to enable purchase orders. ECC, in this case, will not only create the sales receipt, but also create a purchase order in QuickBooks. If you're using dropshipping or you'd like to create POs, you can check this box and then go over the Purchase Order tab. There are a number of details related to purchase orders, which we won't cover in this demo, but you can always refer to the purchase order video for more details. Just to give you an overview, you can specify when to create the purchase orders and how to create them. You can also set up details of a purchase order, such as the ship to address, template, and so forth. I go ahead and hit Cancel. I'll go back to my settings screen. I'll uncheck that box. I can now hit Save and Continue and move to the next step, which is the Customer tab.